Hello there guys, it's me Unstable Voltage and welcome back to episode 3 of Europa Universalis IV. We're playing as England. We have managed to finish the 100 years war with France by offering them Calais and Le Bourg and Gascogne, which we now have CBs to take back, but of course we're in a truce with them, so we can't do anything about that just yet. We also gave them back Calais, but Burgundy have a core on Calais, so maybe this will prompt a bit of a war between Burgundy and France, which will be very nice. They do actually have each other rivaled, which is fantastic. So there's a very good chance that they will be going to war with each other. In the meantime, we have a war with Scotland to get underway. Now, we have lost a little bit of money now because we have lost some trade because we did embargo a few people. Now, I did say how I was going to explain a little bit more about how trade works. So if we actually have a look on the trade map mode, which shortcut key is E, you will see, if we zoom out, all of these different numbers. Now, these are the various different trade nodes around the world. And you see all these lines with arrows moving. This is the flow of trade. Now, these arrows and these lines, these never change. The arrows always run in the same directions and the lines always connect the same trade routes together. Now, what you can actually see is this little man here means that I have a merchant. Now, I have a merchant collecting trade in London. Now, technically, I don't need to have a merchant in London because London is my capital trade province. If I click on London, you can see that this is my capital and it is my main trading post. Now, providing my... If we actually zoom out and look at the trade regions... Can never find the right map mode for this. It must be one of the many, many extra ones. Opinion, coalition, region map mode. Is it that one? Ah, which one is it? We'll find it, bear with me. Culture, sphere of influence, revolt, colonial missionary, buildings, supply limits, trade values, technology, manpower, economical map mode. No. So many players, accepted cultures, winters, climate, colonial regions, trade company regions. There we go. Nope, still not that one. I thought it was trade company regions. It was not. Trade goods map mode. That just shows where the trade goods are. Anyway, can't remember. I'll find it for next time for you. I think that's basically showing it now. Yeah, there we go. So, anything that is in red here is the London trade node, which is this one. So, providing my trade capital is any province within the London trade node, so any of this red area, then I will automatically collect trade from this node. Now, there are two things that you can do with trade. You can either collect from a node, or you can try and steer the trade somewhere else. So as you can see, a lot of trade is coming into London. Trade from the North Sea comes into London. Trade from this node, which is the Western Europe trade node, comes into London. We've also got trade coming out of Bordeaux and going into London. Now, we do have two merchants. We have one in Bordeaux, actually. And as you can see, this one here has a little red tick. Now, the reason for that is because this merchant in Bordeaux is actually steering trade along this path into London. So, without that merchant there, trade would still naturally flow into London, but by having the merchant, he can actually push the trade, a little bit more of it, up along the line. Now, there are several ways you can actually increase your trade efficiency on each individual node. One of those ways is by building more trade buildings in provinces. That increases your trade efficiency. Another way is by having your light ships protect trade in a particular node, and that will steer trade as well. And also by having more provinces. The more land you own in a particular node, the more trade you will get. I mean, as you can see, if we look at the London trade node, I own all of this land, and I own Meath, but I don't own these 4 provinces. If we actually click on this trade node, that is actually represented by this little pie chart here. You can see that England has 67% of the trade power amongst the countries collecting from this trade node. And then Leinster has 8, Munster has 8, Tyrone has 8, Burgundy has 3, and Connaught has 5. So Burgundy's getting a little bit because some of it is going out. It might be possible, of course, that Burgundy has a merchant here as well, or they may have a trade fleet. We can recall the merchant. We can send them somewhere else. Lots of numbers and figures here to show you what's going on, but you can see here that 96% of the trade power causes 4.41 ducats to be retained. So the majority of the money going into London stays in London. We're only getting about 66% of that. Well, actually, we're getting less than that. We are getting 67%. It's just how it's rounded. Says 67 there. Says 66 there. 67 there for England. So 96% of the money going into the London trade node is staying there, and only 4% is leaving. And out of that 96%, we are getting about 67% of it. So, as we get more merchants, we will be concentrating a little bit more on trade, but that merchant in London probably isn't doing all that much for me. Having one over here in Western Europe is a little bit pointless, because there isn't really any money being pushed forwards. Now, what we could do is we could recall the merchant from here. It will take him a day or two to get home. And there he goes, he is free. If we go into the Western Europe map mode, and we can transfer trade power, and we can send our free merchant, he will arrive in 14 days. So it'll take a little bit of time for him to get there. Let's just speed things up a tiny little bit so that happens. So he has arrived in the node, and now you can see that he's automatically steering trade power into London. Not sure why these numbers don't always update. I think it's because there's currently no trade going in. There's no money coming from America to go into this trade node, but if there were, we'd now be sending a percentage of it our way. But at least it does demonstrate the system and how it works. What I could do, of course, is see, I have lost a little bit of trade there, but not an awfully huge amount. Where else is money coming into London from? Well, it's also coming into London from the North Sea. And how much is actually coming in? Not a huge deal of money, but we could push more of it down in this direction. So we'll probably do that. We will recall our merchant from here, because he's not doing an awful lot. It'll take him 14 days to return, and then we'll probably put him in the North Sea. And of course, later on, you could then move them further afield. Now, you can only put a merchant in a... you can only put a merchant in a trade node if you have some trade power in that region. So you can't just decide I'm going to go over here and I'm going to drop a merchant in. Although it just, yeah, unable to send merchant. So must be in range. You do have a maxed range. Must have an available merchant. Trade node has to be discovered, and only one merchant can be allowed in a trade node. Those are the rules and regulations for that. But it is time for our war against Scotland. So what we're going to do, we have a free diplomat. We are going to click on Scotland. We are going to click, well, we could just right click there. And what we are going to do is we are going to declare war. We can call in Portugal and Castile. At this point, I don't think I actually need to call either of them in. So I'm going to say no. Oh, we've actually got a bit of a problem now. Scotland have changed things up a little bit, and they are now allied with Sweden and Novgorod. So that could be a little bit of a problem. So what we will do is we will actually call in our allies, and they can deal with Sweden and Novgorod. Now, we have a truce with France, and Scotland are being guaranteed independence by France. Now, because we have a truce with France, France shouldn't be able to get involved in this war. So let's go ahead and make the declaration of war. And that is fine. Now let's have a look who is involved in this war. France have actually been called in. Now, that's very strange. Maybe because it is defensive. So we're actually in a war with France now. But that's not the end of the world, because all we have to do is take Scotland. And then we can peace out. So we don't have to worry too much about what is going on over here. Yes, the French could try and siege these two places, but I'm not overly worried about that. The French do have some ships around. They do have a little bit of a navy, but we're not terribly bothered about that. So what we're going to do is we are going to move our units into Scotland, and we're going to go forward and start sieging the place out. Okay, we have ourselves a event here. So, the Doctrine of Particular Judgment, when we die, I'm not reading through all the buttons. Basically, the options are, Catholicism can gain a 1% Reform Desire, but we gain 2 Palpable Influence, or we can lose Reform Desire and gain some Revolt Risk. Not too bothered about the Revolt Risk. Let's lose the Reform Desire for now, although sometimes it is better to actually have more Reform Desire, because you can become Reformed later on. So what I'm going to do is start splitting up some of these armies a little bit. We're going to select this army here. We're going to hit D to detach a siege. And we are going to move the army forward into Fife. We're going to do the same here, detach a siege, and move the remainder of the army forward into the Highlands. That will allow us to siege more provinces. And also means we should basically be trapping their army in Aberdeen, unless they're up here fighting in Orkney, which is quite possibly what is going on. Aberdeen looks empty, so once again we will detach a siege. Now, oh, that was the wrong... You can go to the Highlands. Nope, doing it all wrong. Right, group up, detach a siege, you're going to the Highlands. This army, detach a siege, and you're going to Aberdeen. So, whenever you hit D to detach a siege... and you guys are actually moving in. So let's pause. What happens is, whenever you hit D to detach a siege, what you are essentially doing is you are leaving behind just enough people to siege that province, and then the rest of the army you can move forwards. Now, what I need to be careful of here is this place is very mountainous, and we've got to be careful here. We do have a Scotland army moving in on the 28th of February. I'm going to get these guys to... hold tight for the moment. Yeah, they've decided to change their mind. Now, we could go in on them, but the problem is they're in the mountains, and they're very, very likely to get the better... Oh, we're likely to get the penalty for attacking them in the mountains. I mean, this place is... Actually, it says it's mainly hills. Yeah, mountains 20%. But let us take our big stack there, and we'll actually march forwards. We might be able to get the better of them. In fact, better idea, we might even be able to bait them in. Let's not do that. Let's move this big stack into Aberdeen and just leave the 2 guys here on their own. By leaving the 2 on their own, it might actually bait Scotland into coming in, and that's exactly what it is doing. We've gained our CB against Connaught, which is great. So now we've just left 2 people in Fife. Scotland are deciding that is a good time to attack. They don't have a leader. They're going to arrive on the 1st of April. So we need to start moving our troops on the 31st of March. If we start trying to move before the 31st of March, the AI will just detect that and then it'll stop coming. So the 29th, the 30th, and the 31st. Let's pause. Just realised that that merchant is actually now back. So let's just go and have a look at the trade map mode. And we want to put our merchant in here. We want to transfer trade power. We want to send the guy, and he'll automatically push it in the right direction anyway. So we want to take this larger army and move it into Fife. Now, it will take it until the 8th of April to get there. So they will arrive first. And I don't know how long we're going to be able to hold out against them, although we did get a very good roll. This particular group doesn't have a leader, though, which is slightly problematic. Now, when are we going to arrive? On the 8th. We may not make it, because they are now reinforcing. We actually lost that battle, but those guys are still going to arrive. So we'll still let these guys go in. We're going to send these guys in as well. Oh, no, we're not doing very well here at all. Yeah, we're just going to have to try and flatten their army before carpet sieging. So everyone is going to move down with them. We'll try and catch them. We have caught them. We're going to take the... select our army. We want the larger army that still has the morale. You're going to move in there. Now, we do actually have the penalty. And the reason we've got that penalty is because the Scottish were there first. So we are technically attacking. But they don't have a leader, and we do. And we're about to reinforce. So we lost a little bit of war score, because we've already lost a battle. We did win that battle. Now, these guys are coming down into Ayrshire. And when are they going to get there? on the 5th of May. Could potentially try and head them off. Let's send the army that has the better morale. You can't actually move... Oh, it's because you've just finished the fight. Okay. Now, if we did that, when would we get there? On the 2nd of May. So we'd actually get there before they left. A relation has been accepted. These guys, Aachen, will transfer trade power to Burgundy. Okay, that's fine. Sorry if my voice keeps going high during this this video, but no matter how quietly you have the volume, whenever there's a battle or a siege going on, the volume is really, really loud. And because I play with a headset on, it's almost like I have to shout so I can hear myself. It's ridiculous. So we have a penalty again because we are fighting. We've got one for the crossing and one for the terrain. We could move these guys in, which we probably will. They're not at full morale, which is a little bit of a pain. But the more units that we can reinforce with, the better. Now, I'm not sure at this point where the Scottish fleet is, because it would be nice to go and sink that. We could move around here and try and sink that French fleet, and I think that's what we are going to attempt to do. Let's take this off pause. You're going to arrive on the 11th of May, which is only 1 day away, so we'll reinforce there. And we should win that fight quite nicely. Hopefully we'll get some better rolls than zeros. But you never know. They do have a leader here this time around. Okay, and we actually won that battle and their units are starting to flee. Not too sure where that French navy went. They've actually gone down there this time around. So this is what I was actually hoping. The Portuguese are, well, the Portuguese are getting involved in a fight, but they're actually getting their arses handed to them, which isn't helping out a great deal. But there is a bit of naval battles going on down there. Hopefully the Castilians will get involved with their navy. We are starting to get a bit of a positive war score. This is the thing you do have to be careful with your allies, is sometimes they do actually make things worse for you. We will go in at this point, actually, and look at our own country, and we're going to go into stability and expansion and reduce our war exhaustion slightly. We're also going to go into the economy and raise the war taxes, and that'll give us a little bit more money coming in. That's going to help with some stuff. So, we've pretty much wiped their army out at this point. Still want to watch out for these French ships. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a look at the army we have here. We are going to take Richard Neville's army. They're both pretty beaten up, but we're going to head down to Fife, and we're going to see if we can chase down their army that is running away. Not sure how far they're going to go. I think they're actually going to stop in Fife, so we should be able to stack wipe them. Oh, well, that deal lasted a long time. So in we go. We should kill them straight off, because they have very, very low morale. We do get the penalty, of course, and we actually won and wiped the stack. So, what we're going to do is detach. Actually, we've got to wait for the battle to end. So, detach a siege and move into Aberdeen. And then what we've got here, there's actually two provinces here. We've got the Highlands, and we've also got the Western Isles. So, what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to split in half. Not that one. I always keep forgetting to select the right unit. You guys... Right, who's moving? Richard is moving. So let's deselect you. And you two guys merge up. I want to select this group, and I want to split them in half. The shortcut key is S. And I'm going to take the army that doesn't have the leader. That one has Richard Neville. Click again. That one doesn't have the leader. And I'm going to move that army into the Western Isles. Now, if you have islands that are connected with these red dotted lines, that is a crossing. Which means you don't need a ship. You can just literally wade across. It's like a causeway. There's another one here. There's quite a few of them around the world between various islands. There's one over here between Corsica and Sardinia. And there's one here between Italy and Sicily. Now, the only exception with these crossings is... if your enemy is blockading, you can't get across. So if the Scottish or the French had some ships in the Northern Channel here, I wouldn't be able to get across. in either direction because it's blockaded. So it's a very good way of keeping, because they could have an army of 100 men on this island, but if I had one ship here blockading, that army wouldn't be able to cross. So it's a very, very good way of keeping people trapped. But you guys are going to head across on to the Western Isles. And we've unpaused. You're heading across to Aberdeen. Takes a little bit of time to get there. Now, what we're essentially acting here is a carpet siege. Now, the reason it's called a carpet siege is because you're covering the floor. You're covering the entire nation. Now, is that actually the Western Isles? Yeah, the Western Isles counts. So I thought the animation would show it as being there, but not. So that's fine. So we are actually sieging all of the provinces that Scotland own. Now, this is a great advantage for us because what it currently means is Scotland is unable to reinforce because they can't produce. They cannot produce units in a province that actually has units on top of it. And if they do, they'll only get one unit at a time, and they will instantly just get murdered. So all we have to do is wait for these provinces to get sieged out. Obviously, in the meantime, there's still a possibility that we will lose some war score to various fights that are going on down here. We can see we've got a bit of a naval battle going on between the Scottish Navy and the Portuguese. There's actually a few French ships in there as well, and a few Castilians. The Portuguese and Castilians actually won that fight, so that helps a little bit. Now, we shouldn't lose anything else into France, and I think it is actually an important lesson in... Oh, right, so Leinster's gone to war with Connaught, that is fine. It's an important lesson in this game, and that is to remember that you don't have to win every battle, and you don't have to win every war. Yes, certainly it helps, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter if you lose some land. And remember, you can be in a war. And, you know, France can siege out these two provinces. I don't care. Right? If France end up with those provinces, it doesn't matter. Because even if they siege them, providing I win the war, they can't take them. So it doesn't matter. And even if they did win the war, and even if they did take them, we'll go and get them back later on, if we want them. It isn't all that important. Now, it looks like Connaught might fall to one of the other nations down here in Ireland. That's going to be a little bit of a pain if that happens. And assuming that might happen, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go into... Now, who was it that attacked them? It's actually Leinster. I'm going to go into Leinster, and I am going to fabricate a claim on Leinster. And then what will happen then is once we've done with the war with Scotland... we'll be able to go and attack Leinster, and if Leinster have managed to take over Connaught by then, we'll be able to take that as well. So we've got the option of doing that. I don't need to go over here and deal with the Orkney Isles because currently they are owned by Norway. We've got another event here, and the options are to either lose 1 stability and 20 ducats. Northumberland also gets plus 20 national revolt risk, as does Cumbria, as does Norfolk. And Catholicism gains a 1% reform desire. Or we can lose 1 stability, and France, Burgundy, and Brittany's and the Papal States' opinion of England all drop. Well, I'm never going to be friends with France or Burgundy anyway, so let's let them be. That gives us -1 stability. I'm instantly going to go in and go into stability and expansion. And I'm going to spend 100 of my 104 diplomatic power to bring the stability back up. We've already won 1 siege against Scotland. And we know about the stability drop. So what I could do is I could move these guys to help siege somewhere else, but they don't really need to, so I'm just going to let them sit on the spot. But I think we'll probably continue with the rest of this war in the next video. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. I hope you are still enjoying EU4, and I'll see you next time. So until then, goodbye for now.